This will be a brief video, I suspect. Won't be very long. I am going to call this the 9th of the month of Av video. Apparently, I was not aware of all the different dates that in the Jewish calendar. I sort of was aware of it, but the 9th of the month of Av is a very important date in the Jewish calendar. And I think they have 8 months, not 12. So there's a fluctuation of some sort in the way the dates fall. But the 9th of the month of Av was July 21st this year. And I was alerted to, not directly this phenomenon, by another YouTuber that I like, Hank McGurk. He left a link on my last video. Check it out, about a guy called Bill Smith talking about QAnon and a bunch of other things related to Apollo 11, magnificent landing on the moon. And I also want to comment, I hope I remember all this, a comment by another YouTuber that said to me about, he's incredulous about the effects of Fukushima on the Pacific Ocean because he has researched it at Woods Hole with Ken Buesler, I guess, and Jay Cullen, the guy up in Canada, who've come out definitively and said that it's not an issue, the same way that Chris Busby said way back when that the ocean is so big with so many millions of trillions of liters, it could never have an effect. This is Chris Busby. Remember this, Chris Busby, somebody that is in the system who does quite a bit of good in many ways, like Helen Caldicott as well. But these are older souls who are still stuck in some time warp. And I'm going to explain how I approach all of my, how my contribution is possibly of value to somebody like this commenter history fellow who said that he's incredulous. And I said to him, and this will come back to the month of Av, I said that my presentation to you and the YouTubers I appreciate, and there are YouTubers that present me with facts that I appreciate, but where is the origin of their interest in certain facts? I think this is crucial. It's combined with intent as well, that we have a nature within ourselves, that the closer we come to what I guess, for lack of a better word again, is a source of our well-being, of where we come from, what it is that makes us us, what makes us go, what it is that makes us valuable to each other. And my source in terms of my own growth as a painter, as an artist, as a human being, comes from a level of intuition. Yes, intuition, imagination. And sometimes you're kind of like way out there, kind of weird. It's sort of, imagine if Van Gogh had a YouTube channel and he's totally ignored by everybody, which is a fact. For 50 years after he died, nobody gave a crap about Van Gogh. And Van Gogh talking about his insight into making a painting. What is it that where does this come from? Where does this whole yellow business come from? No, I really don't find it very appealing. It's kind of vulgar and crass the way you use yellow. And Van Gogh will give an explanation, say, well, I have an intuition about this. Anyway, my comment is, you don't come to my channel because I'm going to give you the facts, man. The facts. You're not going to get the facts. What you're going to get is the source of my interest for certain facts. And the source is my own intuition. Why am I interested in something in the first place? What is it that makes me go? And that's what I'm interested in when I look at other YouTubers. I look past their pronouncements and all the verbal diarrhea that they pile on top. I go to the source, and if I find a reality based on conscience, I love the idea of conscience. I repeat myself about the things that are important. I bring it up over and over. And the intent, if it's based on conscience, the facts are going to sound a lot more interesting to me. So that's just a little bit of a background of people who say, well, I've discarded Fukushima because Woods Hole and all those people have come out, and Busby, that it's not a big deal. And I just draw your attention to the fact that a fellow called Dana Durnford has been on the ocean, one of the only ones, really, to physically do that extensive work, months and months on the ocean, on the Pacific west coast of BC, documenting the tide pools, which are near dead. And he's just come back, and I want to draw attention. I'll leave a link again for Dana's channel under my video. And here's a person that actually admits to having come to this somewhat later. I was on this 1 week after Fukushima blew up. I realized within myself something monumental had occurred. Something monumental had occurred. And I didn't have the facts, but I knew something was really wrong here. So all my expressions, my presentations aren't based on me having all the details of everything, which is accumulating rapidly, people, rapidly in the real world in existence. It's rapidly accumulating the evidence of what effect this disaster, this catastrophe is having on the real natural world, which is a whole other magnificent topic that I get involved in. What is this experience, this thing we call reality? How does this all fit together? How it works? How it can be so easily manipulated and draw us away from our calling, from what it is that we have within us, to accept something, the facts, which are basically not rooted in that imaginative feeling of ourselves, that intuition. I mean, the real world exists, but so does another world that we're not that comfortable, or it's not as accessible at times. I find myself having to really, the way I make my work is I have a very diligent work ethic. I've developed a work ethic where it's basically like a 7-Eleven. I'm here every day as much as I can be, have been for the last, well, in this studio for the last almost 20 years. Unless I have a show where I have to do some stuff, go shopping and get materials or whatever. So what did I want to say? I wanted to talk about, okay, so the idea of the 9th of the month of Ab is interesting. This was brought up by Hank McGurk indirectly. And of course, the 9th, it's a 9/11 number again. So 9/11, Apollo 11, 9/11. And the 9th of the month of Ab is when the Hebrew temple was destroyed. The first destruction was by the Babylonians, by Nebuchadnezzar, I think. This was in like 300, 200 BC or something. And the next one was in 70 AD. The Romans just kicked the shit out of everybody in Jerusalem, supposedly, and leveled the temple, and it hasn't been rebuilt. So in the Jewish state, recently, a 9/11 event, there are so many numbers. You got to go to Cat-Eye. I wish he would do a 9th of the month of Ab analysis. Mr. Cat-Eye, I love this guy, how he connects numbers and rituals that occur over and over again explained through the numbers, the repetition in certain numbers that indicate we are involved in a ritual event, and culture is based on the zodiac, those luminary planets and around us, and the sun, and the things happening ritualistic over again. There are numbers associated with it. It is a quagmire of incredible manipulation on our being, on our nature. And you can dive into this. I think it's infinite how deep this is. This is the mystery. It's magnificent. And how it's being manipulated by people that think they can get a leg over, right? Ultimately, you're sunk. You're sunk. People who think you can manipulate this mystery to get a leg over, you'll have an effect, but you're going to be sunk. What I have, I call it an eternity. I have a romance with eternity. And I have this suspicion, my own intuition, if you believe what I'm saying, it's based on an intuition that eternity is real, and I have a romance with it, and I'm going to develop that. I'm going to court eternity in this experience as much as I possibly can, which is why I rely on intuition. So the idea of this event, where possibly, this I can't say, it's more of an intellectual conclusion, but we've headed into the month of Av, which is significant, and Israel is raising its what is that, serpentine heads, reaching out into reality from the ethers wherever they come, and establish themselves now with this state based on a 9/11 number. This is something that I came across. Like I said, I came across a YouTuber that Hank McGurk linked me to, and is expressing this that I heard in the peripheral thing. I heard about Israel creating some sort of state consciousness about their country and all this kind of thing going on again. And it has to do with the destruction of the temple, which is a monumental event, and the rebuilding of it. And once the temple is rebuilt, we're ready for the Messiah. This is the sort of prophetic part of it. And this is, again, religions create external realities in order to explain something that's unexplainable. It's something that cannot be verbalized and explained. You can maybe get to it with metaphors and paintings and pictures. You can create a sense of this feeling that we might have towards an understanding of this mystery. So what I'm, okay, here's the commentary, and it gets a bit longer. I guess it doesn't. Okay, so let it get longer. So what? My explanation of this, and to the commenter again, that if you're looking for me to give you the facts, you're on the wrong channel. What I'm presenting is a fundamental intuition about my own nature, communicated in my paintings. You have to see my shows, you have to see my work, you have to have my work on your wall to have an appreciation of what it is that I'm talking about. But I also link certain facts, like Fukushima. I linked to a fundamental notion that I have, that we're under threat as life, not just human life, but life in general. This is something that came welled up in me, and it goes back in my own history of understanding art. I think Goya is another prophet. He's the closest, well, there are others, but not on such a grave prophetic nature as Goya. Saturn eating his own children is a prophetic painting about life being under threat from within, And there are other artists that have their own version of this. I think Vincent is so important in art history. Important for me, not because he's getting $100 million and up at painting now, he's not getting it, but somebody's profiting from it, is because there was an insight, an intuition about the nature of who we are, which also is connected to what I suspect now is a complete threat of all life on this planet. We're under threat. So don't look for the facts when you come to me, but I will lead you to a sense of self through my own experience. This is, I think, important when I say we need to talk about we need to create our own story to supplant the stories that are being imposed on us through all the usual suspects. You can go into this, you can listen to all the YouTubers that supply you the facts about the numbers, like Cat Eye, all that kind of stuff. It's all valuable, but we're not creating our own story. I'm someone out here with a few other artists that are aware of the circumstances, that are making a story, that are creating a story that will supplant their story. That's what I'm saying. I am creating my story, and I'm making it as I'm contextualizing something about myself when I present things to you. It's not about out there, it's about in there, ultimately. And I back it up, I suppose, with facts. Like the 9th of the month of Av, we're heading into something that is going to potentially be incredibly monumental within a history. 2 temples destroyed, never rebuilt, and now they want to put it on the mound, what is that called? The sacred mound where everybody wants to huddle. They all want to have their little Boy Scout meetings on this rock. The Muslims, the Christians, the Jews, they all want to huddle around Jerusalem on this mound. Anyway, there's room for only, I guess, 1 temple. And this is going to create enormous anxiety. And again, it's manipulated. It's driven that way. It's using numbers and symbols to dysfunction our being. This is something that's happening by externalizing everything rather than internalizing something. That's a mouthful. And the idea of my greatest proof of this notion of that everything is externalized is backed up by the idea of religion. The way many people who are dedicated and devout in their sense of self through a formula, an institutionalizing of this mystery. Religions institutionalize the mystery by intent, the people behind it. There may actually be some value in understanding this mystery through it's a kind of twisted logic. The explanations, biblical explanations, and the stories that we adhere to, because they've been totally mistranslated. But I can understand people seeing some value in having a guide to say, you know, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Remember, it's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's not the tree of good and evil. And people make mistakes in religions. They kind of Coles note the whole thing and fill in the blanks with marshmallows. And so the whole institutionalization has humongous problems for me. And people who are devout Muslims or Baha'is or Buddhists or Jainists or whatever religion you are, there's always an external, look at what you're look at how you attach yourself to your belief system, because it's always connected to something outside of you. And the clever part of it is that, oh yes, it's inner. It's an inner world. But then they represent everything in an outer world. The story, and you say, well, what else? All we experience is basically something that exists outside of us. How can we have come to a resolution or a conclusion about this? When you say this inner world, what does that mean? Well, I'll tell you what it means. The inner world is the world where you begin to tell your own story and see it outside of yourself. Not something that is imposed or told to you, but you begin to tell it yourself. Now, this is an incredible task, because I've been doing my work for close to 50 years now. And this is a process within myself that has developed to trust myself. I use external influences. I'm influenced all the time, but ultimately I come to a sense of myself in the way, I've said this, in the way I work. I have come within my own work process to a way of working that is so individual and unique. It may appear in others in certain ways, but it's like all great artists develop their own personal technique, their own way of making something. It's not just the image you're looking at. It's not just the story, but it's how you tell the story. That's even more ethereal. It's the way you deliver something. Is if you read a poem and then you listen to the poet deliver the thing, sometimes that can really help you understand a poem. Rather than just reading the words, you feel the delivery behind it. That makes a big difference. I've had that experience when I've heard live readings and just read it on a page. There's a difference. So the delivery, the way something is told, the way something is expressed is actually, for me, more important. So if you look at a Chuck Close portrait, it's the way he made this thing that is as impactful as what you see as an image. And obviously you don't necessarily have all the understanding of how he made it, but all I'm saying is the way it looks has a lot to do with how he made it. The story wouldn't be impactful if he didn't have a means of making it feel that way. Check Chuck Close. So I think I've covered what I wanted to say today, that there is an indication, some of the people I listen to on YouTube feel similar, that we're entering a monumental event based on the 9th of the month of Av. Now, there have been many 9th of the month of Av since the 70 AD of the Common Era, when the temple was destroyed by the Romans the last time. So there has been a long period of time. Are we now in a crucial period? Now, here's where I would say the confluence is, there's a ratcheting up feeling. I have this. As far as I can stand outside of this isn't easy to talk about this from the point of view that I am witnessing under my watch the destruction of a major body of water on Earth, and consequently all the other bodies, because everything is connected. How can I just talk about this? Well, I'm not talking about it from the point of view, oh yeah, I'm observing. It's like those esoteric types, those Swami guru types that sit on a rock that pretend they have no attachments to anything. What a bunch of hooey that is. It's a great philosophy. The idea of there is love and there is fear or anger, and then there is detachment. Yes, the love and the fear, the flight and fright, and the love part of it makes sense to us. Detachment is an interesting concept, but I don't think it's possible. So I don't feel detached. I don't feel detached. I have an enormous love set. I have within me this love for creation, this mystery. I have this romance with eternity. This is how I feel. And I'm not detached. So when I think about this, but I need to create a context, and it's not always as what in my mind it says, well, this is this, and that's the consequence. I have no idea of all the consequences. I do know we're under threat, and we need to activate something within ourselves based on conscience. I come back to this. We got to find this part in all of us. And unless there's a critical mass, we're going to proceed toward an inevitable conclusion, which is something that I believe the forces that are working against us are now mounting a major assault. I think in combination with a lot of different things. When you look at the geoengineering, the weird fires going out in Redding, California, the fires that only burn half a house, or leave a tree perfectly intact while everything else is being burnt. There have been some interesting explanations how the aluminum oxides in the air that are being sprayed over us are actually accelerants, conductors of this fire. Like, these are attacks against all life on Earth. And it's, yes, the Earth is a certain dimension, size, whatever that might be, people. I am not convinced about any particular plan or image of the Earth. I am open about this. I'm not sure where we're at in terms of what the Earth is. It's definitely not floating in a vacuum with a whole bunch of other little balls going around at certain speeds. That's a bunch of hooey that's come out of this cartel, this culture of death, who propagates stories that are not consistent with what it is we experience. So you need to find your own kind of center to weed through all of this shit that's being thrown at us. And the danger of it all now is, at this time, we have passed the 9th of the month of Av, and it's something you can research for yourself, the destruction of the temple. And are we heading to, and a 9/11 event was, don't think it fell on in the month of Av, but the numbers, I wish Kat I would do a thing on this, on the month of Av, the Jewish destruction of the temple. There might be quite a number of ritual events that he would connect, like what the hell is going up with Israel over there? What are they up to? What are they doing right now to indicate where we might be going? And is there a resolution? My final word today. Is there a resolution to all of the stuff that's going on? Absolutely, 100%. Stop listening to all the facts out there. Listen to me on my message, and that is get closer to that which feels, again, for lack of a better word, this sense of a calling, that you personally are acting that which you feel you were meant to do. Whatever, and don't try and find an explanation. Just become part of that which you're meant to do. Oh, hopefully it's something that is of value to someone else as well. It's not just sort of like, oh, I want to be an axe murderer. Hopefully you're not. I'm not saying that if you feel like being destructive and abusive, that you embrace it. I'm saying find that part that feels sweet, that thing that you need to do. From the smallest thing, like if you have a partner, give them tea in bed in the morning sometimes, or present yourself in the best possible way, up to the monumental, becoming a leader of other people who follow you by being inspired. They're inspired. This is that kind of like the ultimate the holy grail of what I'm understanding is to be so inspirational to everyone else around. They want to be not like you, but feel the same way you do. That's how I interpret art as well. When I look at a Velasquez or a Giotto, any painter, even colleagues of mine, that I feel inspired, that I say, hey, I wish I had done that. I wish I had painted that or made that thing. Or somebody acts a certain way, I say, oh yeah, I can do that. I can be that way. So this is the story that we begin to tell, how we have changed ourselves to actually make the place better before we go. 9th of the month of Av. An interesting time right now. This is on top of everything else, the despair I feel around Fukushima and the destruction. This is added to it, and I can't wallow in this feeling of it's very hard for me to work these days. It's very hard. I'm working on a series of visors for my. I have a show coming up in Toronto. October 25th. I will give more details about this, and it's based on the astronauts, the people that didn't go to the moon the way they claim they did. And I'm following up. This was a series of works I did in 2008. I have never shown them, and they fit right into this whole idea of their story being supplanted by my story. And I'm subversive to some extent in this, and I've used my newfound techniques in these paintings, and I'm continuing to develop. Right now I'm working on visors of one of the astronaut suits with images inside the visors just by themselves, not the entire astronaut. So I'll be giving more information about this show in Toronto. So if you're in Toronto, you can check me out, and I'll let you know when it's closer to the time in October 25th. Talk to you later.